Hello, everyone. Hey, Michael. Hi, everyone. This is Alex Roman, and this is the first episode of South Office's podcast. Today we have our special guest, Michael Lee, CEO of Reconciled. Hey, Michael, how are you?
Good. How you doing? How you doing, Alex?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for asking. All right, as you know, the objective of today basically is to know a little bit more about about Reconciled. So I wanted just to ask you a few questions, and let's start directly. I want to know a little bit more about your story, about the story of Reconciled. How you were inspired to start Reconciled?
Yeah. No. Thanks for asking, Alex, and thanks for having me on your podcast. The first episode, which is
Yeah.
great, which is awesome. So I started Reconciled about 9 years ago, and I had been a fractional CFO
Hmm.
working on my own and as an advisor to small businesses and startups in Vermont, where I was living and have been living, and started consulting startups and small businesses and nonprofits as a CFO, fractional CFO. And every time I'd go in, there would be a mess that I would have to deal with in regards to the bookkeeping.
Right.
Either the bookkeeping was being handled by the owner or another employee that wasn't necessarily trained in accounting, but that the owner or the leader of the business trusted.
Right.
So I call it the trusted but not trained problem. It's a
Hmm.
dilemma where you want to trust somebody with your finances, and you don't necessarily think about their training in it because you care more that you can trust them with access to your money or with your money. So I call it the, again, trusted but not trained problem. So
Right.
after a number of years of consulting, I did that for about 4 years. I then said to myself, well, I feel like I could really solve the issue of basic bookkeeping and having the books straight if I hired my own team. And that's where the inspiration for Reconciled was born. So it was really a matter of interacting with customers, my own customers as a consultant, and then seeing that there was a problem that I could solve.
Great. That's really interesting. And during this 9 years, you said, what were the I don't know, one or two of the biggest challenges that you can think of that you faced during all these years? I'm sure there were more than one or two, but one or two that you can mention.
Yeah, there obviously, yeah, every week, month, year of the business, I'm dealing with new challenges all the time.
Right.
And I would say, for us and for most small businesses, the if you want to have a small business that scales, the first challenge really is how can I set up systems, processes, and people to get to the first $1 million of revenue
Right.
a year. That's like the first big milestone. And most businesses in the U.S., it doesn't matter what the industry is, most businesses never reach a million.
Okay.
They barely reach half a million, if not a million. So getting to a million a year on a consistent basis is a very big milestone, and
Okay.
that took us a few years to do. But once we reached that, getting the next million was only would take less than a year, and then the
Right.
next million less than a year. So it's figuring out how do you have systems, processes, and people, the talent, in order to get to that $1 million threshold and to break it. And that was definitely like one big challenge. I would say that the second one was figuring out how to find the right leaders that would
Right.
help you continue to grow. Most people can get to their first million or two being the sole leader of the company, being the sole leader, the sole manager at a business. But very few can get past that number unless it's rare, unless you're a software company or you
Right.
have some type of product where it sells itself and there's no additional work that has to be done. It's very hard to grow past a million without leaders. So you need to start hiring leaders. And it was for me figuring out who would be the right people to be leaders at this company. And so I'd say that would probably be the second biggest
I,
thing I
I,
look at.
I couldn't agree more. And sorry, now that you're answering this question, I think that it's something key me as a business owner. I used to have my software development company, and I wanna ask you, as far as I think culture, it's key sometimes to build a really nice culture. What do you what are the things that you do to make people want to work with you and to have your own T-shirt? I don't know if that's an expression that we use in English. In Spanish, is to have the T-shirt of the company. As far as culture, is there anything that you work on?
Yeah, so culture in my mind and my belief is starts with a set of behaviors.
Right.
And when you think about culture, you think about what are the ideal sets of behaviors that the ideal person at this company acts or behaves like. So, for example, the example I love using is this. Let's say you have kids
Right.
and you want to start a household of cleanliness. You want a culture of cleanliness.
Yeah.
Well, there's two ways to approach that. One way is you try to teach your kids the why. Why should you be clean? Right? Why should you be clean? But the problem is, kids, and I would argue, like most adults, explaining why you should be clean doesn't change behavior. And explaining why you should be clean doesn't incentivize behavior change.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't build culture. So I could explain all day long, hey, here's why you should make your bed, or here's why you should pick up your plate after you're done eating and bring it to the sink, or here's why you should pick up your toys before you go to bed. But when you have young kids, they can't listen to that why. So what do? You teach them the how. You say, here's the rule, here's the behavior. When you get up from your bed, you make your bed. Before you go to sleep, you pick up your toys. When you get up ready in the morning, you brush your teeth, you clean your teeth, right?
Absolutely.
When you finish your meal, you take your dirty dishes, you put them in the sink or the dishwasher. All of that is to build a set of behaviors that results in a culture of cleanliness in your house. So the same thing with companies is you have to clearly lay out what are the expected set of behaviors that the ideal employee and really every employee should be expected to behave. So for example, show up on time to meetings. When we say a meeting is at 9 o'clock Eastern, you show up 9 o'clock Eastern or earlier. You don't show up later. If that's an expected behavior you want, if you want a behavior of punctuality, of people showing up on time, you set a behavior. And if they don't show up on time, you hold them accountable to not showing up on time. Just like you would hold kids accountable to not making their bed or not picking up their toys. The same thing with, deadlines for work. When you say you're going to meet a deadline, you meet it, right? Or you submit it earlier than the deadline, and you wow the customer or the internal employees. So you set those behaviors, and then you live them out as a leader. You model them as a leader. You talk about them. You reinforce them. You reward for them, and you hold people accountable when they don't meet them. So that's how you build culture. And the why around that can be explained over and over again. But at the end of the day, you have to lay out the actual behavior, the expectation behavior, and what happens if you do or don't meet those expectations. And so when I learned that, I implemented that and codified it fairly shortly into the company after I started the company. So I actually wrote down the set of behaviors. We call them the team rules.
Okay.
And it's basically, here are the set of rules where every employee, no matter what role you have, you're expected to behave like this. And
I was
you will be
gonna
held accountable to that.
I was gonna ask you that. When you say you wrote them down, you actually wrote them down. There's a
Yeah.
place where all the
Yeah.
employees can go and okay, that's great.
Yeah, you don't want it stuck in your head. You actually want it written down, and we have it on the first page we call it our culture document. On the first page is our vision, mission, and values.
Right.
And our second page is all the team rules. And we laminate it and literally mail it to our employees. So they have a physical copy as well as a PDF that they can access from anywhere where they can see. And then at the performance reviews, we align their performance review every year with how did they rank in aligning to these behaviors.
That's great.
So that's really important, because otherwise we all come from different cultures, different backgrounds, or different places. But there's no reason why, in person or virtually, you can't create a great work culture as long as you have behaviors that reinforce a positive and productive work culture.
That's great. It's great that you've done that, and actually, I think it's a great idea for everyone to do that, because one thing is just to say it, or to do meetings and say, all right, this is the way that we will be working. But if you have everything written down, again, communication, I think it's key. So yeah, I really liked what you've done there. Great. I was gonna ask you, as far as milestones or achievements, you already answered this on the last questions. Let's talk a little bit about innovation. I know there are many accounting firms and many other companies that do a similar thing that what Reconciled is doing. How does what do you do as far as innovation to try to be different from other companies?
Yeah, so the accounting industry in the U.S. is very big, right? As you know, there are millions of accountants. There's hundreds of thousands of practitioners, either on their own or at a firm and building a firm. So how do you really differentiate yourself? Well, the first thing I really focused on was brand. And so most accounting firms in the country are still named after the last name of the owners.
Absolutely.
And that's not very innovative. It's like, okay, who are you? And it's a very traditional way of going about running an accounting firm. So we really focused on brand, finding a name that would resonate with the industry we're in and with the services we provide, and that would help our customers recall who we are and hopefully build and garner brand loyalty versus name loyalty. And so I didn't call the business Lee Accounting, right, or Lee Bookkeeping Services.
Right.
I really wanted to focus on this brand, Reconciled. And then the second kind of innovation was then to build a business model and a go-to-market strategy that looked more like other companies, like software companies or SaaS companies or other types of more modern services companies, instead of a business model that looked like a traditional accounting firm. So we don't have anybody with the title partner here, or managing partner, or managing director. We don't have multiple offices or offices where we have partners sitting there and they manage a book of business. We really focus on building an organizational structure that looked like all other types of industries and businesses, where they have a CEO and a chief revenue officer and a director of services. So that was really, really important to us. And then third, we really went out of the time and material billing process and into a fixed monthly fee process. Now, there are a lot of firms that do that now, but in comparison to the whole industry, most of the industry by far is still billing time and material, or by the hour. And going to a value-based fixed monthly fee billing model is definitely an innovation that many customers in the U.S. are still not used to from an accounting firm. They're still used to that hourly billing model from most accounting firms. And then, lastly is the remote structure. Is we've got U.S. teammates and Argentina teammates that serve our customers, and it doesn't matter what part of the country they live and where our customers are, we can serve them remotely and do that as in real time as possible. So that's really kind of the innovations that we've tailored
Uh,
on. More and more firms are doing that like us, but it's still the minority of the industry.
Okay, that's something I didn't know. So right now, you're saying that most accounting firms they're working with the times and materials model. All right, all right.
Yeah, most accounting firms, all the way up to the big four, big public accounting
Uh
firms,
huh.
and all the way down to regional firms, small local accounting firms, are still billing everything by the hour
Right.
or by the tax return. If you think about the tax practice, by the tax return. And only a minority have shifted tax services and bookkeeping services to be billed on a fixed monthly fee basis.
Okay, and going back to the first answer you gave me on this question, was it was reconciled from day one, right? It was not Lee,
Yeah.
Michael Lee, and then you changed the name. I'm just curious. No, you start
Correct.
directly with reconciled.
And in the beginning, the reconciled.com domain wasn't available, or at least we couldn't afford it.
Okay,
So we purchased reconciledit.com
okay,
and reconciled.it, which is an Italian domain as well,
right,
So we bought those two domains and called our company Reconciled It for a while. Now, after 2 years, we were able to afford reconciled.com. So we finally went out and got reconciled.com, and that's what and I was able to drop the it and just be called reconciled going forward. Now, a lot of the confusion the first few years was some people thought it was reconciled IT, so they thought sometimes they
right.
thought we were an IT company. Like, what is this IT company doing accounting services for? So eventually, and it generally is not in the name of most companies. So a lot of people looked at it and thought IT when they
Right.
saw it, which is fine as long as they knew we were doing accounting services. But once we were able to drop that in 2018, we got the domain reconcile.com. We dropped we dropped the it. We were able to then focus on being reconciled and reconcile.com going forward.
Right, but this was something that you knew from day one, having or putting the focus on the company and not in well in yourself in that case. But
Yes.
great. Thanks for this, and want to ask you one last question. Um, Again, well, you have a lot of experience. You have been doing this for the last 9 years. I want to ask you, what advice would you give yourself from 9 years ago? Now, with all this, all the things that you've been through, I don't know, things that you would tell yourself, hey, let's put more attention here, do this, don't do this. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I would have told myself two things.
Hmm.
One is slow down. Slow
Okay.
down, Michael. Yeah. And the second is that people matter more than anything else. And so whether we're growing fast, we're growing slow, whether we're having a great year or a bad year, and ultimately people matter the most in this whole journey. And I've learned that time and time again is that my enjoyment and satisfaction in even doing any of this are the people I get to work with and meet. That's customers, contractors, vendors, software company, leaders,
Right.
and especially my peers. People that I've gotten to meet in the industry have become the closest friends that I've ever had. And I never thought I would enjoy not just the people that work with me, which I do, but I would enjoy as much. I would enjoy the people that also run other firms that I would call friendly competitors, or
Right.
pretty much people that are in the industry. That I'm in a very unique industry where I can make some very close friends, which I did not expect to ever happen. And so that's one thing I would have told myself is to enjoy the people that I get to work with and really not take it for granted.
That's great advice. This last question, I I was thinking like if you could give advice maybe to other business owners that are starting, but I wanted just to change that a little, and I think that's great. It's kind of inspiring what you have just said, and I couldn't agree more. Um, I couldn't agree more. I think it's important the journey of well, all the things that you are doing, and if you're able to work with great people, people that you like working with, that's great. That's a great experience. Um, well, Michael, I just want to thank you for being part again of this first episode. Hopefully, in a few months we'll get up to 100 episodes, and we'll be celebrating that. But you were the first one, so I want to thank you so much for being part of this first episode of South Offices, and well, hope to see you soon, either here in Argentina or whenever I go there to the States. All right.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex.
Take care. Bye bye.